Good morning. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having us.
Always recognition. Family, before we get started, I just want everyone to know that early voting starts this Thursday, June the 12th, through Thursday, June the 19th, from 10 a.m. until 8 p.m., all early voting days. And for those who want to know, most of the newspapers are carrying it. If not, you call your delegate, senator, and others, and the information. Certainly, we will continue encouraging early voting, particularly on this coming Sunday in the state of Maryland. We're going to have early voting on a Sunday, so we ask our faith-based community to be so mindful as they do what they do, giving out good messages on that day. They also give out a message that their members can go and vote. This morning, we will have candidates. They have a 2-minute opening statement, and everything will be done in the order of as you see them. Delegate, please share your report.
Oh, well, good morning, Larry, and thank you so much for hosting this very important debate. And it's wonderful that we are all able to talk to the listeners here in the Baltimore area. You know, Baltimore has some significant issues that the next Attorney General must, and as the next Attorney General, I will address. You know, Baltimore, like many other parts of the state, were hit very hard by foreclosures. And Baltimore remains among the top 2 in the state in terms of the number of foreclosure filings. You know, as the next Attorney General, I will encourage other attorneys around the state to step up to the plate like I did and represent families on a pro bono basis so that they can keep their homes. But the other issue that goes along with the issue of foreclosure is the blighted bank-owned property that is artificially devaluing the wealth in our communities. You know, there was a study done by the National Fair Housing Alliance, and it showed that 70% or more of the bank-owned properties in Baltimore City had 10 or more marketing deficiencies. And when you have marketing deficiencies for homes that are being sold on the market, they are typically sold to investors that are paying far less than the fair market value. And what that does for families is it takes away their economic independence. You know, it used to be that families could borrow against the equity in their homes to send their kids to college or to, you know, to start a business. But because of this economic injustice perpetrated by the banks here in this state and elsewhere in the country, that type of economic independence is being taken away from Maryland families. It's a significant issue and one that I will address as the next Attorney General. And I look forward to talking today about my leadership on HBCUs, my leadership in pay equity and ensuring that everyone in this state is paid fairly. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Delegate Tom Carter.
Thank you, Larry, and thanks for this opportunity to be able to speak to the citizens of this great city of Baltimore. We live in a rapidly changing world. I'm running for Attorney General to keep Marylanders 2 steps ahead of those new threats facing our families. 30 years ago, when we thought about public safety, it was about getting rid of crime in the streets. When we thought about consumer protection, it was about making sure you bought a safe new car. When we thought about environmental protection, it was about getting trash out of the ocean. When we thought about civil rights, the road to equality, the road to equal pay for equal work, the road to stamping out racial profiling was long and nearly impossible to navigate. And those issues are still with us today. Crime in the streets, trash in our bay, con artists and bigots are still out there. But with the internet and other new technologies that exacerbate old problems, they give criminals new ways of exploiting you. So while reduction of violent crime is still our #1 priority, we also have to think about hacking and online privacy issues. While we still have to deal with those old and aged issues of consumer protection, like onerous utility bills or problems with toys that your children are chewing on that have toxins in them, we also have to think about websites stealing your credit card information or trying to exploit you and your family and your business. And while we still have to get trash out of the bay, we also have to think about carbon emissions and their impact on climate change. And today's struggle for civil rights not only includes stamping out racial profiling, but also stamping out domestic violence and dealing with making sure that every single Marylander is treated not only fairly, but with dignity. I am not only a progressive, but I'm a pragmatic legislator. I'm a general practice attorney, and I am an unapologetic supporter of democratic principles. I'm uniquely qualified to tackle these next generation issues without losing sight of those old and persistent problems. I'm looking forward and excited to be your next Attorney General to protect you. Thank you.
Thank you. State Senator Brian Frost.
Larry, thanks for having us here this morning, and hello to all your listeners. I've spent the past year and a half traveling around the state, and I hear the same themes wherever I go. People want to feel safe in their neighborhoods. They want clean air to breathe, they want clean water to drink, and they want equal opportunity. They want a shot at the American dream, and they want a quality education for their kids. And these are the things that I have fought for my entire career. 35 years as a practicing attorney and 28 years in the Maryland General Assembly, and I've had great success. I'm the author of the Maryland Recycling Act. I'm the author of the law that stopped the oil companies from drilling for oil and gas in our Chesapeake Bay. I'm the sponsor of laws that protect consumers from cheats and frauds and help them save their homes from foreclosure. As chairman of the Judicial Proceedings Committee for the past 12 years, I have had the privilege, the honor, to lead the General Assembly through a series of landmark bills, protecting victims of domestic violence, repealing the death penalty, and enacting the toughest gun safety law in the United States of America. It's a law that will keep guns out of the hands of criminals, keep them off our streets, and save lives in the state of Maryland. I can promise you that as your Attorney General, I will show up for work, and I will work hard every day. I will continue to fight to make Marylanders safer at home, in school, online. I'll stand up for consumers and working families. I'll crack down on polluters. I'll give voice to the voiceless. In short, I'll be the people's lawyer.
First question. There is, in this campaign, an interesting situation. You have the Attorney General and you have the state's attorney. When that comes up to you, to explain to the public the difference between the state's attorney and the Attorney General, that was correct.
Thank you very much. So the state's attorney is required to handle all the criminal matters in a local jurisdiction, on the trial level and in the investigation level. And the Attorney General handles all the appeals that would then ensue. If I was elected Attorney General, the first thing I would do is make sure I told every single state's attorney, all 24 of them, that if they bring me a case that is polluted or tainted with racial profiling, I will refuse to take it on appeal. We have to do something about making sure that we keep our streets safe. Our #1 priority is reduction of violent crime, keeping illegal gang activity, illegal drug and gun activity off the streets. But we can't do it in a way that violates people's civil rights. And racial profiling is totally unacceptable. It will not be tolerated in my office. As I have said 2 nights ago, Senator Frost voted against some of the most common sense and practical reforms that protect children over the course of his career. He tried to kill a bill that would keep child rapists in prison. He's consistently killed bills that crack down on predators who sexually assault children. And he killed a task force to study child abuse and neglect. A task force to study child abuse and neglect. What possible harm could have come from a task force to study child abuse and neglect? I'm sure he has his reasons for making these.
Thank you. It's 90 seconds response.
Thank you.
State Senator Brian Frost, in response to the question dealing with the discussion between a state's attorney and the Attorney General.
Larry, I'd like an extra
And you can,
minute.
well, you can put it in your 90 seconds and then you can ask for rebuttal.
Okay.
And that's done by hand. Okay, go ahead. That's it.
First, the difference between the state's attorney and the Attorney General. The state's attorneys prosecute the street crime. They have the initial responsibility to protect us from violence. The Attorney General, as John said, handles criminal appeals, but also has initial jurisdiction over a number of criminal areas: gun trafficking, gang violence, interjurisdictional crime, environmental crime. The Attorney General is also the person who heads the largest law firm in the state of Maryland. There are more than 450 assistant attorneys general. They represent every state agency, board, task force, and commission. They defend the state when it gets sued, and they bring suit on behalf of the state, on behalf of the people of the state of Maryland. So the Attorney General plays a series of important roles, one of which is, importantly, stopping crime. Now, as Attorney General, I will be vigilant in each one of those areas. I will give good counsel to the state, and I will protect our citizens from violence. Let me start to address the charges that Delegate Cardin made. And first of all, with respect to the task force, the Senate had a good recipe for preventing child abuse. We voted and sent to the House a law that would make it a crime to fail to report child abuse when a person who, like a teacher, social worker, or other individual with responsibility, direct responsibility over children, fails to make that report. The task force that John referred to is a task force bill that was killed in the House of Delegates before it came to my committee. My committee doesn't address bills that it knows are dead in the House of Delegates, and that's why we did not pass that one. With respect to the other bills, I have long had serious reservations about mandatory minimum sentences. He's talking about one that had a 25-year mandatory minimum. I was opposed to it.
Gentlemen, we will not go back and forth in rebuttal. There are too many issues in front of me to allow that extension. You can, I will watch and monitor. We'll try to give you an additional 30 seconds, but if we do the rebuttals, you will probably lose an opportunity to have a closing statement. So you weigh that. Delegate Lisa Greenwood.
Thank you. And it's Aisha Braithwaite, Larry. But thank you so much. You know, the main job of the Attorney General is to protect and defend the constitutional rights, both the U.S. constitutional rights and the state constitutional rights of the citizens here in the state of Maryland. But in addition to that, the Attorney General is the top consumer protector in the state, which is extremely important. And let me tell you why. The state of Maryland was a leader on implementation of the Affordable Care Act. But now we know that many of our insurance providers, including CareFirst, the state's largest provider, is now proposing a 23 to 30% rate increase over the next few years. And the Attorney General has to absolutely be willing to step up on behalf of consumers and fight against big business trying to take advantage of them. In addition to that, the Attorney General has a unique role to coordinate with both the U.S. Attorney and local state attorneys to fight against things like human trafficking, illegal gun trade, and illegal drug trade. And it's guns and drugs that are the cause of most of the crime occurring not just here in Baltimore City, but all across the state. The next Attorney General has to be focused on these issues of interstate and intrastate gun, drug, and human trafficking.
Thank you. Next question. In a discussion about responsibilities and naming and giving out what exactly the Attorney General will do, the biggest conflict that I've noticed for the public is exactly when you say the people's attorney. Question. When you represent the governor, you've got your departments, you've got all the responsibilities you have, so here you are as Attorney General, and the governor decides to go in one direction. What direction does the AG go? And starting with, in the order. Yes.
Okay, great. So the Attorney General is elected independently for a reason. If the Attorney General was just there to represent the governor, represent the interests of the governor, that is, represent the interests of the legislature, that position would be appointed. But it's not. It's elected in our Constitution for a reason. The people in this state deserve a voice. They deserve an advocate who is independent. And while the Attorney General will represent the interests of the government, it also has to balance that and weigh that against the interests of the people. And where the government, the governor, perhaps, or the General Assembly are creating laws or policies that are working against the interests of the people, the Attorney General has the ability and the authority and certainly the discretion to not promote those policies. And I'll give you an example, and I know we'll talk about it a little bit more, but on the issue of the historically black colleges and universities, I mean, the state took a very defiant, very arrogant position when it came to the educational rights of our students attending HBCUs. I would not have defended the state's position on that issue, and I look forward to continuing to discuss this. I know my time is up now, but I really, I know that you'll ask questions on this issue, and I look forward to answering them. But that is one example of many where I would not have agreed with the policy of the administration.
Councilman Jody Martin.
Thank you very much, Larry. This is an important question, and the Attorney General is constitutionally required to defend the state unless he or she determines that the law that they're defending is unconstitutional. I have tremendous respect for both my opponents. They're both good people and good lawyers, but the role of the AG is different than that of a legislator. The AG is required to defend the people of the state and to enforce the laws. In Monday's debate, it revealed an important policy difference that goes on at the heart of the Attorney General. The moderator asked all three candidates whether we would defend the state if the next governor appealed the district court decision, finding that states' unnecessary duplication of programs, as has already been talked about by Delegate Braveboy, was exacerbating segregation in our HBCUs. Delegate Braveboy and I both said no, that the opinion was correct, and that the state must resolve litigation to ensure that the health of our HBCUs continues and thrives. Senator Frosch refused to answer. He said that the issue needed to be mediated. Well, I believe that the AG needs to know when it's time to mediate, and when it's time to say enough is enough. We need to treat our citizens with respect, dignity, and with the rights that they deserve. The state was wrong. It's time to insist that we eliminate the last vestiges of Jim Crow.
Senator Brian Frost.
Larry, the job of the Attorney General is to get the state to obey the law. And I'll give you an example of that. When Steve Sachs was elected Attorney General, he was confronted with a situation in which developmentally disabled and mentally ill adults were being warehoused against their will. The state was confronted with lawsuits and with threats of lawsuits. And what General Sachs said is, this situation is unconstitutional, I won't defend it. I think that's appropriate. The Attorney General has to say that. The Attorney General has to uphold the Constitution, not merely defend the state when it's wrong. And I would adhere to those principles. What I said in response to the question about the HBCU decision is, first of all, there is no decision yet other than that the state had duplicated HBCU programs illegally, unconstitutionally. The judge ordered the parties to mediate. That's an area in which I excel. I bring people together. I find common ground. This is an opportunity for the Attorney General to act. The Attorney General represents all of the institutions, all of the higher education institutions in the state, public ones, and it's an opportunity for someone to take that situation, fix it. It's not something that should be litigated. As Attorney General, I can do that. I will do that.
Thank you very much. I had the opportunity to go through the news releases that you've been sending to us. And I'm going to pull and take one, maybe two, that's particular related to one of your news releases, but I want all three of you to respond to it. The first one is protecting small business and entrepreneurship from corporate bullies. Calvin Carter.
So, yeah, I mean, we need to make sure that all bullies are treated in the way that in the manner that they need to be. We have to provide our businesses a fair and level playing field, and they need to have predictability and stability in the system. And the way to do that is to create a regulatory scheme that is clear and understandable so that every single company and every single individual out there feels as if they're being treated fairly and safely. And let me tell you something, if we are not treating both our citizens and our companies safely and properly, then it's got to be up to the Attorney General to make sure that that is done appropriately. Let me say this, that one of the things that, one of the disappointing facts of Monday night's debate was that Senator Frosch lacked candor in answering tough questions. The senator was asked about what he told WBAL as AG, that he would not have pursued legal action against the company that ran Maryland's failed healthcare system. At Monday's debate, Senator Frost said that his answer had been taken out of context because he'd only been asked a question about criminal investigations. Well, let me remind everybody what the question was. Quote, would you investigate what happened to the money? I mean, do you see any role for the Attorney General? That is not a criminal question. That is a question of what the Attorney General is going to do to make sure that we're protecting our businesses.
Thank you very much. Protecting small business and entrepreneurship from corporate bullies. Senator Franco.
Larry, as chairman of the Judicial Proceedings Committee, this is an issue that I've been concerned about for at least the past 12 years, and I've had an impact. This is the only situation I know where the General Assembly has had the opportunity to overrule a decision of the Supreme Court. The Roberts Supreme Court issued a decision that said that vertical price fixing was okay. It was not a violation of the Sherman Act. Maryland's antitrust laws mirror those of the federal government. I got a law passed that changed our law that said that vertical price fixing is illegal, a violation of the antitrust laws in the state of Maryland. It's great for small businesses. It's great for consumers. So I've actually had an impact on that. Let me respond to Delegate Cardin's accusation he is misleading the public again. The question that was asked, because our Republican opponent, Mr. Pritzker, said that if he were Attorney General, he would investigate how and why the healthcare exchange had failed. And I said that I would investigate if I did not criticize Attorney General Gensler. I said, if there are criminal charges, absolutely I would investigate that. I would sue the Meridian, the contractor that failed to do its job. But unless I saw evidence of criminal acts, I would not investigate the state government. Now, so far, there has been no indication that criminal acts have occurred. I think there have been acts of serious negligence and failure to perform the contract. That warrants civil action. It does not warrant a criminal investigation.
Delegate Aisha, very cool.
Thank you very much. You know, small businesses are the backbone of our economy here in Maryland, and we absolutely must protect and defend them. You know, one of the unique things about Maryland is that it's the home of one of the fastest growing, not just minority, but women-owned business centers in this country. And so we have to protect our small businesses. You know, one of the things that occurs, especially in government contracting, is that the agencies will have these large contracts that go to, large, businesses, and they partner with smaller local businesses to perform their work. But oftentimes the businesses are not paid. They're not paid on time. They're not given work once the winning bidder gets the contract and signs the deal. You know, as Attorney General, we need to enforce the contractual agreements that large companies are making with the state. We need to ensure that women and minorities are being paid what they have agreed to be paid. We have a minority business statute for a reason. That statute is one that the Attorney General's office helps to create every 5 years when we do our disparity studies, and then we come before the General Assembly with a new NBE program for the state. And in order for our state to really achieve greatness with respect to our businesses, we must and absolutely have to protect those businesses.
Thank you very much. Next question. Justice for victims of violence and hate crimes.
Thank you.
Delegate Freeform.
Thank you very much for asking that question. You know, last week I held a press conference to bring attention to the issue of human trafficking. You know, we had 276, and I say they're world citizens. They're citizens of Nigeria, but world citizens who were, just taken from their schools. But the issue of human trafficking isn't just an issue for Africa and Nigeria, but it's an issue here in Maryland. We know here that far too many of our women and young men are victims of human trafficking, and they're preyed upon, many of them, because they are, they have maybe low income or bad self-esteem, or they have developmental disabilities, and perpetrators of these horrible, atrocious acts like human trafficking look and try to find individuals that they can victimize. We have to protect victims of human trafficking. We also have to protect victims of domestic violence. You know, I passed a law that gave domestic violence victims, you know, the right to make a claim against their homeowners insurance policy if they're a victim of violence and in the act of violence their property is damaged. You know, before that law passed, victims of violence were subject to being told that they cannot, you know, enforce those claims, and that was another injustice that was done here in Maryland to victims of violence.
Thank you. Delegate Jordan.
Thank you very much, Larry, and again, this is a very important question. Let me start off by saying that the House delegates passed, on sine die at 7:30 p.m., a bill to create a task force to study child abuse and neglect. It went over to the Senate and it languished on the last day of session in the House Judicial Proceedings Committee, and that was unfortunate. We also passed a bill that dealt with revenge porn, which is important in that we are making sure that people who are being victimized have their rights being taken care of, and making sure that we are criminalizing other people's activity of exploiting others. But victims of domestic violence have got to be treated with respect and dignity, and trying to deal with this issue from day one has got to be a top priority of the Attorney General's office. I'm not going to have time to get into the discussion, but we did have to talk about Jessica's Law on the 2 nights ago at the debate. The fact of the matter is that I supported Jessica's Law, have always supported Jessica's Law, and Senator Frosch has in fact voted against Jessica's Law, which is a law that will protect victims of violent crime and domestic violence. That is what we need in our Attorney General.
Senator Frosch.
Larry, I led through the Senate legislation to create the crime of human trafficking and to expand it and provide greater protection for victims of it. I also killed in the Judicial Proceedings Committee legislation to create a stand your ground defense in the state of Maryland long before Trayvon Martin was murdered. I killed it, wouldn't bring it up for a vote. There were more than enough votes in my committee and on the Senate floor to pass it. I stopped it. I've long been concerned about gun violence. I've long been concerned about mandatory minimum sentences. When John says that he always supported Jessica's Law, that's just not true. He voted against it one of the times it was up, and he voted against it a couple of times that it was up. The fact is, it was a 25-year mandatory minimum sentence. In addition to that, he stood last week with a gentleman who has a long criminal record and who is today charged with 22 counts of human trafficking and prostitution, and encouraged people, said, I'm proud of his endorsement, and he encouraged people to follow this gentleman on his Twitter and Facebook accounts. If you look at those accounts, what that guy says is horrible stuff about women. He talks about, I make hoes, I break hoes. This is not the kind of person that you want to be associated with, let alone endorse and encourage people to follow.
We're going to take a break of 3 minutes, and I just want you, coming up after your rebuttal, 30-second rebuttal, the question will be smart tactics to keep kids safe. This is the Larry Young Morning Show. It's 8:30 on 1010 WOLD.
Maryland 2014 Maryland Attorney General's Office. Larry Young Morning Show exclusive. More from the cameras.
It's 3 minutes.
I know. Thank you.